So the first positive about today's game is that a win is a win, and the Philadelphia Eagles did win in the end. The other positive about this game is that last season, around this time, there is zero chance that the Philadelphia Eagles team, playing the way that they did, actually wins this game. There's definitely a lot to be improved upon, but it's important to recognize that the Eagles defeated the Carolina Panthers. Welcome to the Bird's Nest Podcast. I'm Joe Donahue. Thank you so much for joining us. Philadelphia Eagles defeated the Carolina Panthers with a final score of 22-16. And in a related bit, the Philadelphia Eagles actually did wind up making the playoffs because the right sequence of events happened that enabled that to occur. That having been said, this game by far and away was not a great game for the Philadelphia Eagles. And if they're going to make any kind of a playoff run, there is a lot to clean up following this defeat of the Carolina Panthers. And we're going to start with the defense, because the defense has been playing really, really well. And in many ways, when the offense has been sputtering, the defense has been an area where the Philadelphia Eagles could rely upon a certain degree of consistency. Unfortunately, the defense didn't play its best game this week. The Eagles allowed the Panthers to net 302 total offensive yards, most of which coming through the air, but a good chunk of them coming on the ground. Additionally, the Philadelphia Eagles allowed a 44% conversion rate on third downs. The Carolina Panthers went 7 for 16 on third downs and 3 for 5 on fourth downs. The Carolina Panthers were 2 for 2 in the red zone as well. So these critical moments when the Philadelphia Eagles defense is being called upon to deliver, more often than not, the Carolina Panthers were able to escape with a first down or whatever it was that they were looking for. Bryce Young was 19 for 34 on the day with 191 passing yards. He was sacked once. He had one touchdown through the air and also was picked off once. Big props to C.J. Gardner-Johnson there on that interception. So the defense did have some big plays, but it was in those critical moments where it felt like the Carolina Panthers were able to get away with a whole heck of a lot. Adding into the fact that Chuba Hubbard had 26 carries for 92 yards against an Eagles defense that going into this game was the 7th best run defense in the league. And it really makes you wonder what exactly was going on. Tackling really has to be reliant on the eye test in these kinds of situations. You can use analytics to pair up particular players and particular matchups, but when you're assessing the quality of a tackle and the quality of tackling in general as a unit, you really have to rely on what you're seeing on the field. And what we saw on the field tackling-wise was absolutely abysmal. Players were able to evade, dodge tackles. There were lots of hits, but there weren't a lot of opportunities to wrap up players. And credit to the Carolina Panthers offense, because there was definitely a lot of skill on that regard. Bryce Young was sacked once, yes, but the Eagles had opportunities to wrap him up more, and Bryce Young was just elusive in the pocket. Some of that was Bryce Young. Much of that was the Eagles' defense not wrapping up players and bringing them to the ground. It feels like the Eagles were resting on their laurels a little bit, especially over the course of the last several weeks, including following their matchup last week against the Baltimore Ravens, when Cooper DeJean has been hailed over the course of this past week for the incredible tackle that he made against Derrick Henry. The Eagles simply didn't have defensive answers for a lot of the Panthers players. Adam Thielen had 9 catches on 11 targets for 102 yards, by far and away the best performing receiver on the Carolina Panthers. Adam Thielen, it felt like, was getting every conversion on the third down or fourth down that the Carolina Panthers needed. But other players were in the mix there, and The Eagles just simply didn't have enough good, solid answers. And that poor defensive performance showed in other statistics. The Carolina Panthers won the time of possession battle, 33 minutes and 33 seconds compared to the Eagles' 26 minutes and 27 seconds. Carolina was able to put together a number of sustained drives. The Panthers' two longest drives, both of which resulted in touchdowns, went more than 7 minutes and 45 seconds apiece. The first drive occurred on their first drive of the second quarter, took 7 minutes and 48 seconds, went from their own 31 to the end zone. And their only drive of the third quarter went 7 minutes and 53 seconds, starting from their own 42 after a missed field goal by Jake Elliott, and ended in the end zone. And at the end of the game, the Carolina Panthers were moving down the field with relative ease, especially in their final drive of the game, where it felt like the Carolina Panthers were going to become the Atlanta Falcons of this post-bye stretch that the Eagles have been on. Now, fortunately, the Eagles' 2 fourth down stops came on those final drives, and that is what wound up becoming the difference in this particular situation. But you can't let it come down to that. The Carolina Panthers are a markedly inferior team, and the Eagles had plenty of opportunities throughout the course of this day to be able to put their pedal to the metal, to be able to allow this game to get away from the Carolina Panthers. But instead, they let the Carolina Panthers hang around for a little bit too long. And if the Carolina Panthers were any other team, like, for example, the Steelers, the Philadelphia Eagles simply would not be the victors in this week. So the Eagles defense definitely has a whole lot to clean up here. So now we're going to turn to the offense and take a look at their performance, which also was not great. Jalen Hurts was 14 for 21 in the passing game for 108 yards, 4 sacks on the day. As a quarterback, you can't be giving up 4 sacks. The offensive line had a big part of that. The offensive line didn't have its best game today, but Jalen Hurts needs to have the pocket presence, needs to have the field awareness to be able to say, hey, here comes pressure. My offensive line isn't having its best game. Let me see if I can get this ball out quicker. Credit where credit is due, though, to QB1. There are no interceptions in this game. He didn't turn the ball over at all, which means that over the course of this 9-game streak, he's only thrown 1 interception. Jalen Hurts also had a decent showing in the run game, a number of really good scrambles. He ran 8 times for 59 yards, including a 35-yard run that set up a touchdown. Now, throughout this, I did find myself wondering why the Eagles weren't running the ball more, especially against the Carolina Panthers defense that going into this game was the worst run defense in the league. The worst. Saquon Barkley had just 20 carries for 124 yards. Now, Saquon Barkley did set the in-season, single-season rushing yards record that was previously held by LaShawn McCoy. So mad props to Saquon Barkley. Again, he's a real asset to this team. And when he did break the record, Saquon was greeted with chants of MVP throughout Lincoln Financial Field. But it felt like the Eagles weren't relying on the run nearly as much as they should have against this Carolina Panthers team. Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, and Kenny Gainwell combined for 209 total rushing yards. It wasn't a great day. There were also a few questionable passing targets by Jalen Hurts. Hurts targeted A.J. Brown 4 times. Now, he caught all 4 of those passes, but he amassed just 43 yards over the course of the game. Devontae Smith, in his first game back, 4 catches on 6 targets for 37 yards. Grant Calcaterra had 3 catches on 3 targets for 16 yards. Calcaterra did have his first touchdown as an NFL player in this game, which is awesome for him and a real memorable moment. But there were other questionable decisions that Hurts was making in the backfield, And that led to this game being a lot tighter than it should have been. And once again, the Philadelphia Eagles chose to spend the first 15 minutes of game time allowing fans to get their drinks, get their food, find their seats, hit the bathroom, rather than taking that opportunity to score points. The Eagles were unable to get anything going on either of their two first quarter drives. Their first quarter drives, actually, one of them was a 3-and-out. The other one went 6 plays, but never got out of the Eagles' territory. I also want to acknowledge that Jake Elliott still does not have a 50-plus yard field goal this season. He missed one today that was 52 yards wide right. Jake's got to figure out whatever is going to get figured out. Nick Sirianni postgame blamed it on the wind, but at a certain point, Jake Elliott, who the joke was, he was in range halfway into the flight to whatever stadium he was going to, is now not as automatic as we would like him. Now, to Nick Sirianni's credit, he did recognize that there is substantial room for improvement, even though the Philadelphia Eagles came away with the victory today.
Enjoy the victory. Enjoy. Don't be a prisoner of your expectations, and enjoy it. But we got a lot to clean up. There's no doubt about that. And so enjoy it for the night. I can enjoy it for a couple hours because I'll go home and I'll start watching it and looking at that. Those guys can enjoy it for a little bit longer because we got to get back to work tomorrow. And then it was just about getting back to. So again, you got to have. I said one thing I said to him is like, remember how it feels when you lose and everything. And I think I might have said this to the coaches and all the how much it hurts when you lose and how down you are when you lose. You got to enjoy a victory, no matter what the expectation was. My expectation was going to be a hard game because this is a team that keeps getting better with the Carolina Panthers, and so enjoy it and put your head down and work. And then what I said to the guys is, everybody has the will to win, and we all want to win. But are we all willing to do the things necessary that winning requires? And I think that this team does. And that's just my way of saying to them, hey, it's going to be about the work again next week going to play the Pittsburgh Steelers.
But at a certain point, if you're going to be a playoff team, and this team is now a playoff team, for the 4th consecutive time in Nick Sirianni's career, the Philadelphia Eagles made the playoffs. If you're going to be a playoff team, you have to be able to defeat the teams that are notably inferior to you. The Carolina Panthers had the potential to be a trap game, and they have been playing better than they were at the beginning of the season. So credit to them for that. But the Eagles are still a much better team than how they played today. And if they're going to play as... But the Eagles are still a much better team than they played today. And while we can take this opportunity to relish the victory and enjoy the victory, and we should do that, once our blood pressure comes down, we should enjoy the fact that this is a victory. The Philadelphia Eagles can't play this way against teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers, against teams like the Washington Commanders, who are still vying for the division title, against other teams that they may face in the playoffs. They can't play this way in this final stretch of the season, because otherwise it's going to be another very short January. But as always, let me know what you think in the comments below. What were your big takeaways from this game? Where do you see improvement? What really stood out to you positively? Let me know. And thank you so much to everybody for tuning in to the Bird's Nest Podcast. You can support the Bird's Nest Podcast by liking and subscribing to Bird's Nest Media right here on YouTube, as well as by sharing to your social media pages. You can also find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, and the Odyssey app. Please visit birdsnestmedia.com for additional Eagles and NFL coverage, and if you feel so inclined to support us in a different way, you can find the link to our Patreon in the description below or at birdsnestmedia.com. Thank you so much for tuning in, and let's go Eagles!